Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third seminar in the UGA College of Public Health's Black Alumni Connection series. I'm Dr. Reagan Tuff, a 2009 graduate from the College of Public Health and a proud inaugural member of the College of Public Health Alumni Working Group, and I'll be your facilitator this evening. Before we begin and introduce our speaker, I want to share a little bit about our alumni working group, as well as the purpose for this seminar. The mission of the alumni working group is to support the CPH Office of Development and Alumni Relations by fostering meaningful and lasting connections among the CPH alumni family. And we do that by creating programming and engagement opportunities for you, our community of alumni, students, and faculty, to show our commitment to the UGA College of Public Health. Throughout the year, as a member of the work group, I collaborate with 4 dynamic public health leaders who are also serving as members. That's Erica Parks, Kim Metcalf, Meredith Keller Woodman, and Lori Elmore, and they'll be joining us a little later during our call, and I will give them an opportunity to introduce themselves to you. We launched the Black Alumni Connection series to commemorate the 60th anniversary of UGA's desegregation. We want to honor those who paved the way for us and celebrate their experiences, accomplishments, and knowledge of the college's Black alumni in the field of public health. Our guest speaker today is LaNeesha Scott, an environmental protection specialist and project manager. LaNeesha has worked in environmental health and public health for 20 years, both in public and military sectors. She has an extensive background working with individuals from local, state, and federal government agencies in Georgia, Hawaii, and South Korea. LaNeesha has worked as an environmental protection specialist with the Department of the Navy Naval Facilities Engineering Command. There, she managed the hazardous waste program on the Air Force side of Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickman, located in Honolulu, Hawaii. LaNeesha has also worked with the Veteran Affairs Caregiver Support Program. She has a bachelor's degree in environmental health sciences from the University of Georgia, and in January last year, she earned a master in public health with a concentration in global health from the Southern New Hampshire University. Furthermore, LaNeesha is the recipient of the 2020 Distinguished Scholar Award for achieving the highest GPA in the MPH program, which was a 4.0. In 2018, LaNeesha was inducted into the National Society of Leadership and Success, another scholastic achievement. Her future goal is to work with public health task groups, reviewing and developing public health policies, procedures, and guidelines, as well as implementing programs designed to promote and aid the general health and well-being of the public. Let's give a big congratulations and warm welcome to Miss LaNeesha Scott to the Black Alumni Connection series.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, we are so happy to have you with us today. Thank you for joining.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, LaNeesha, we have a few questions for you today just to talk to you about your career trajectory and any experiences that you've had in the field. So our first question is, what's your view on the intersection between environmental health and public health?
I would say for the longest, while I worked in environmental health, I always noticed, when you talk about furthering your education, it was like people in our field always had a master's in public health. And I was always like, well, why would we get, a master's in public health? Because in environmental health, where I used to think, I would think that the field is broad because, we're dealing with stuff with land, with water, with air, with hazardous waste. And it's like, yes, we're dealing with protecting the public and the public's health, but we're also dealing with protecting the environment and, from people damaging the environment that's going to damage the public's health. And so for us being on the state level and then working with our local public health departments that did smaller scale things, I used to always think that public health was like a small part of environmental health until I actually got into obtaining my master's in public health. Because when I was trying to decide on a master's, I was all over the place. I was like, yes, I want to do public health. I want to do construction management. I want to do emergency management, because all, construction, emergency, it's a lot of stuff that's in environmental health. But in taking the classes for my master's, I realized that public health is the broad, the broad area, and environmental health plays a role in public health. So I feel like that was interesting for me to finally realize, why do we get a master's in public health when, like I said, we could get a master's in pretty much, anything. Like I said, emergency management. I think I had like 5, 6 things selected, and then the school called me and they were like, Ms. Scott, we're going to help you figure out what it is that you want to do. And so, but I'm glad that I did pick public health, and I had a really good advisor. And so she helped me even narrow down my focus even more with the focus on global health as well.
Well, we are glad that you chose public health too. And, I think one of the things that's interesting to me is that most people come into environmental health, or a lot of people I know come into environmental health after being introduced to public health. So can you talk a little bit about how you got into the field of environmental health?
When I got to UGA, my major was undecided. So it's like, I'm here taking these, the basic core classes, trying to figure out, what direction to go in. And one day in my mailbox, I get a brochure talking about environmental health sciences. And it was, listing all the things you could do and the places that you could work for, like, CDC, EPA, such and such. And my mom worked for EPA. And so I was like, well, hey, it was like ding, ding, ding. I was like, well, I can do this. My mom, she works there, even though, she wasn't, like, she didn't do the same work I did, but still, it was just that connection for me. Hey, she worked at EPA, maybe one day I can do it. So that's really how I got into that.
That's awesome. And I often find that for particularly younger public health leaders, that they find a connection or mentor or role model that really introduces them to the field and what's possible in that field. And that's why I really, really love this connection series, because we get to talk to people about their pathway and their entree into the field. So let's move to our second question. How has being a Black professional shaped your career?
In response to that question, I don't know if being a Black professional has so much shaped my career versus my upbringing and, who I am, that has shaped, my career. Over the years, I mean, I've seen, lots of good, lots of bad. Sometimes, to be honest, it can be tough being a Black professional and being a Black professional woman, pretty much in any career. But, regardless, I never let that stand in the way of, the principles and the integrity, that I know that I stand for. So it's like, if I'm doing a job, I'm not that one that's, I'm going to finish it just for the sake of saying, I'm done, here you go, on to the next. No, I'm going to really, dig deep, do, above and beyond to get it finished, get it, I know nobody's perfect. And but I put that on myself. I'm like, this has to be as close to perfect as possible because, like I said, I have other people's, lives, pretty much in my hand, or even, aquatic life, animal life, any, environmental, anything is in my hand. So I can't make that mistake. So I have to get it right. And so I think for me, being the Black professional or just being a professional, period, it just made me, want to work harder and just be the best professional that I could be, to make others like, oh wow, I want to, because I'm like a trainer. And so if I can learn something and if I can pass it on to you and teach you and you can run with it later on in the future, that's I like to do stuff like that.
Awesome. Now, what would you consider some of the challenges that you experienced entering the field, and what advice would you give to others entering the field to overcome those?
Like for me, I'm the type, I like to come to work, I like to know, what's my assignment, what's the end goal. I like to come to work, in the pleasant environment, joke whatever with coworkers, get along with everybody. Or work with everybody to get the job done in the end. But then the negative side is when you encounter, like the entitled people that just, for whatever reason, just want to just bring you negativity and stuff. And it's like, no matter what, it's just always something negative. And for me, that's just draining. That's not who I am. And even if I'm with a group of people working, if I'm the team leader or the team player, I don't ever bring that, to anybody in any situation, because I know what that feels like. And that's not a good feeling at all. It doesn't make for a good work environment. So, I like to make people, feel at ease. We can all learn together. We can all learn from each other. It doesn't matter if I have 20 years of experience and you have one. There's always something that we can learn from each other. That's how I like to make people feel like that. And, there have been times, where, I've experienced where, even with coming to Hawaii and trying to figure out how the Navy and the Air Force works. And I have people there that have been doing these inspections. They've been there for 15, 20 years. And I'm trying to grasp the concept of, well, how does this work? Because one, you all don't have a SOP as to how to do anything. So it's like there's 5 people doing stuff, 5 different ways. There's no consistency. And then if I'm trying to learn from you as a new person what you're doing, but then you tell me, well, I don't know. I don't, when I'm, in my mind, I'm thinking, but you've been doing this for the last, 20 years? But it's like, so then that makes me fall into the realm of doing what they do. So now I'm doing my inspections, the way how I would do it, as opposed to trying to get us all on the same page so that we can all do it the same way. So that way, if one of us is out sick, if one of us leaves, God forbid, if, one of us dies, it's still something there where another person could come in and pick up, a document or pick up where we left off and continue doing the same thing, as opposed to having to struggle and then, got to find your own way. You're on mute.
I was going to say, one thing I heard you mention is that, regardless of where you sit in the organization. If you're a team lead or a team player, you have to learn how to lead from where you are. And I think that's such a wonderful characteristic to have for any public health professional, particularly because we're so transdisciplinary, and we have to have all types of creative thought, all types of diverse perspectives to have a more complete approach to some of the varied public health problems that we have today. It looks like we've also been joined by two other of our alumni work group members, Kim Metcalf and Erica Parks. And so I'd like to have them introduce themselves and then ask any questions that they have. And then we'll go to the chat box and see if there are any comments from the participants.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to see all your faces here. I came in on a good part of the conversation. Welcome to our Black Alumni Connection series. I'm Erica M. Parks. I'm a graduate from 2011, so it's been 10 years now. And my focus in public health is health policy and management. I'm the founder and organizer of Camouflage Me Not. So this is a sweet spot talk because she's talking about working in the civilian sector and working with the military. And so I'm very happy to be here, and I'm happy to continue to hear this talk. I'm gonna hold off on my questions because you may have already did it before.
Hey, I'm Kim Metcalf. I am a 94, 96 graduate with environmental health science degree. So I'm excited to hear your perspective on your career to this point. I have an environmental consulting firm specifically working with the construction and development industry on environmental resources such as wetlands, streams, rivers, lakes, all those things. But I'm not going to be as patient as Erica. I do have a question. Tell me, I love what you just said about the standard operating procedures and SOPs and being able to keep that institutional knowledge in the organization as people transfer in and out. Is that something you feel like we need to try to pass along to our professors and our students? Because I think that is something that is public health people and scientists, we don't think about standard operating procedures and how to write those and be effective. If you can just speak to any advice you have on that, because I think that might be something really helpful to pass all, to our professors to get that to kids. That's a critical item that I think sometimes we forget.
Yes, I think that it's important to always have an SOP because especially if you're dealing with critical stuff like I said, somebody's life or aquatic life, anything living. And if it's something that that you need to go by step so that you don't miss a step, even for yourself, it's even good for you to be able to go back and let me make sure I didn't skip, step number 2, because why am I at step number 5? But I don't know. I think I'm just big on consistency because I think I'm just I don't know. I must be like a natural trainer or something because I just like, writing stuff and then seeing it come together and then see people, well, hey, there is, an easier way to do this. And then, once it becomes, repetitive, you keep doing it, then it becomes second nature, and then you can do it. And then I feel like it would increase, productivity. Like I said, that was something that I just picked up on early on when I first started in environmental health. And it's because you're not gonna, remember if you have stuff coming from this person and this and this. And then it's well, when do I do this and when do I not? And rather than having, all your written notes everywhere, and then, your coworker have 15 other different notes, if we can all come together and put our heads together and it's well, we can do this way. And if we can put all the steps together, I always feel like an SOP is always something that's good to have. And it makes things a lot easier because, like I said, in Hawaii, they had never done that. And as I'm sitting in all these meetings with them, these focus meetings and stuff, and they're always like, well, how can we improve this? How can we get more inspections done in, an X number of time? And I always come back to the same thing. Your problem is you have no SOP. So you have all these people in this room doing things their own way and in their own time, and it's not productive. But, sometimes you can't get everybody to change their mindset, but that was definitely their problem. They didn't have SOPs.
May I add a comment?
Yeah.
I love this. So being prior military and public health, you work with so many folks. We work with so many folks. Mm-hmm. So imagine meshing the two together. So I always say it's like the officer, if we're going on a deployment and we're preparing to take out a bunker. Down to the private, they know the steps, the order, what we're going to do. So if you compare that to the civilian sector, think about your project manager, down to the research coordinator. They should know every step of the way. If you're out of office, for us, if someone gets injured or killed in line of duty, we're still going to take out that bunker. Nothing's going to stop us. And that's the same way I see it in the civilian sector. It also holds us accountable. It creates a checklist. And so it becomes memory, like what to do. Not just checking the box in a way that you just don't think anything about it, but it produces more productivity. The quality of work is better because everybody understands what needs to be done. It's not on one person, and we all share the wealth in whatever assignment that we're doing.
Right.
Yeah, Eric, you make a really great point. I was going to say, especially as some of our public health professionals are aging out of the profession and approaching retirement, those SOPs and documentation of processes is even more so important as we have a new generation of students coming into an organization, and we might lose some of that knowledge, some of that historical knowledge that was present in the organization. So excellent point. It looks like we have a couple of questions in the chat. So I'm going to read those to you. Hi, Lanisha. This is Jim Somerville. Great to see that your career has continued to progress. My question is, how did your work experience at EPD help in your future work assignments?
Yeah, I thought that was you, Jim. Cause see, Jim, he knows I was on those SOPs. Working with EPD, I was fresh out of college, and my first thing I had to do was, write and reissue permits, discharge permits. I had no clue as to what I was doing, but, I created, a system, again, sort of like an SOP, for me on how to do things. And I was generating those permits, left and right. I get them out the door, clockwork. It wasn't, I had like one permit here for a month and then it took me 6 months to do it. No, the secretary was looking at me like, girl, why, I have like 20 permits going out the door. I'm like, here, do your thing with it. But EPD taught me how to be able to write really well. And I'll have people now coming to me, like if they need help with writing something, they know how meticulous I am, with writing, because under Jim, I did enforcement, and enforcement is something that's very important. And, you have to be able, you have to know how to be unbiased, you have to know how to be fair. You definitely have to know how to keep things consistent, because we're really writing legal documents. And if I have to write something legal against you, I'm telling you, you did X, Y, and Z. And because you did X, Y, and Z, now this is going to happen. And so I have to be on top of what it is that I'm saying, or what I have our program saying that you did. in order, to keep us out of the courts or, somebody, lawsuits and stuff, like, oh, they lied against me. So EPD taught me, again, how to write really well and enjoy writing really well. And it also taught me, again, how to be that trainer, how to pull, or how to be that group leader and pull people from different areas and bring us together, where we may do our separate parts, but when we bring them together, I was able to learn how to put all of our different moving pieces together into one document, and everybody understood what it was from beginning to end.
Awesome. Lanisha, the chat box is buzzing. So many questions from you. It's just a reflection of the work that you do. One question I see here is about really, I don't want to call it a popular topic, but I think something that a lot of professionals deal with. And this is from one of the participants. Have you ever dealt with imposter syndrome? And if so, how did you overcome it? I just started my master in environmental health, and I find myself dealing with that. Thank you.
The what syndrome?
Imposter syndrome. So people being in an environment and feeling like maybe they don't belong there, or that maybe they aren't qualified enough to be in that position, and in fact they probably have all the qualifications, but there's still thoughts that may come to them about whether or not they actually belong there.
So the question, are they asking me, have I ever felt like that? No, I don't. No, I've never ever felt like I didn't, belong somewhere. But I would say, if you have doubts, or if you're feeling like, you might not belong, no, change your mindset, because you're there for a reason. And you may not see that now, but you just never know. Some random person may just come up to you and, just say one thing, and it'll just clear everything up. And then you'll realize, okay, I am supposed to be here. Because when I was doing that hazardous waste stuff, I had no clue. But the people, the Air Force people that I work with, and I had to deal with the being on the flight line. That's a lot of top secret stuff, and being with those airplanes, being with those emergency pilots, where even if we had to come on there and take pictures, we would have to have permission and all that. So it's just a lot of things, that I had to learn. But the guys there, they respected me and I respected them, and we had an awesome work relationship. But again, that was, that right there had nothing to do with water and wastewater. But still, I just dug into it and learned what I needed to know and talk with them, and we taught each other, and I just felt I was there.
Awesome. Kim and Erica, do you all have any comments about that?
I've definitely dealt with it. I dealt with it before I went to Fort Jackson to work as public health officer. And because I had been out of the military for a lot of years, I got in 2003, I went there in 2015. Only thing I knew about that area is that I served before. I knew nobody there. And I was hesitant about applying. And so this may apply to somebody on a thread. You've seen a position, but you keep dancing around it. Maybe you get Indeed alerts. Maybe someone has sent you the position that you've seen. Y'all laughing because y'all know this happened to you. And in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, I can do this, but no, apply. Sit down and work your experience to each bullet. You'll be amazed of what you can do. And if you come up short on some of them, because I did, that's a learning curve. And just apply your knowledge. Learn on the things that you don't know. So what I did to get around it is I read a lot. I read everything they sent me to prepare for that transition to leave Georgia to go to South Carolina and moving and all that stuff, but you can do it. And I did some excellent work there. But as long as you're open, honest, trust the process, the knowledge that you already have, know that you would not be in this seat if it wasn't for you. And there should be room for you to learn. You don't want to go into a ceiling position, meaning there's no room for growth. So take the bull by the horn and take advantage of it.
Great points.
Now, wait, okay. Now I do have a response back to that. Now, in that situation where if you're looking at jobs or like what it is that you can or shouldn't do, then yes, I have felt like that, where it's like, well, I might not have done, exactly what this is saying, but you can show. I'm not saying I can't do it. It's all in if you're willing to show me how to do it. So in that, I've experienced that, like, in looking at, what job to apply for or something is like, well, can I do this? Or maybe I can. And then you'll be unsure. But it's like, I guess if it's an opportunity to learn and grow. And if somebody is willing to, to teach you, because I know if it was reversed and if it was me, I would be willing to show you and, and not feel, feel threatened like, oh, you're going to take my job or you're going to take, we're here to learn and we're here, to get to the end result. That's how I look at things.
Thank you, Anita. All right, we have another question in the chat box. Hello, Lanisha. Thanks for being here. What type of waste management were you dealing with the Navy? Can you just share a bit more about that?
With the Navy, they have these things called satellite accumulation points where with like whatever, like if it's oil or whatever chemical that they're using in their particular hangar or something, there's a certain way that you have to dispose of your hazardous waste where it would sort of look like a metal trash can, but that it has to sit like in a certain area and it has to be marked off a certain way. It has to be disposed of, by a certain time. So it wasn't something as simple as, okay, I wiped up this oil or I wiped up this solvent and I just threw this paper towel in the trash can. So that was what I did out there with the Navy. And they had a lot of hangars, a lot of areas where they did work, whether it was on their vehicles, on the planes. They had there was just a number of stuff where they always had these static, because I never heard of that before, but I guess that's what they call their little, either call them satellite accumulation points or waste accumulation points, because they were like small areas. And I guess there was rules that you have to go by, because you have to dispose of your hazardous waste correctly, or else you're endangering public health and environmental health.
Any other questions or comments from participants before we move to our last question? All right. Lanisha, our last question is about alumni engagement. What is the importance to you of Black alumni engagement with UGA, and more specifically, the College of Public Health?
For me, I see it as something as very important and very necessary. Back when I was in the College of Public Health, I think I could only recall maybe one other, Black female in my class. And not that, race or anything has to do with my classes, because I grew up military. So I'm used to people from everywhere. But there were several times where when I was a student in the College of Public Health, I felt that I was, by myself. I didn't have, anybody to like guide me in the right direction. Back then, Dr. Harold Barnhart, he was my professor in a lot of my classes, but he was also my advisor. And although, he was a nice, friendly person, in knowing like what I know now, it's like he really didn't lead me in the right direction as to where I should have been going and what I should have been doing as a student. Because, even though I've always been a good student, there were times where, I've found myself struggling academically. And even though, I thought that I was doing things the right way, I even one time had to seek like, tutoring, but, there's nobody to like lead you to, tutor or somebody that, check on your grades and ask you, are you struggling? How can I help you? You can use these resources. I didn't have that at all. And I mean, it was to the point I was actually academically dismissed from the school. But then, after having a meeting with the dean, me and my father, and it was like, I only had 2 quarters to go for graduation. And after talking to him and, letting him know about, the struggles that I have been doing, I've been going through, what I have been trying to do on my own, to try to help myself, I didn't have any friends that were in class with me where we could study together. I never skipped class. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I wasn't out partying or anything. I didn't do any of that stuff. But, I think it would have been different had I had, maybe somebody I could have studied with or talked to about it. But I didn't have that. I didn't have anybody to mentor me, engage, anything. And so, but that dean, he understood. I mean, I had never seen that man before ever, but after talking with me, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you a chance. I'm gonna let you back in. So I was right back in, like I think the next day or that same day. And even though those last 2 quarters were like my toughest classes, those were the best 2 quarters really academically ever, because, I told, my end goal, is to, to graduate. And I feel like, if you dismiss me now, I feel like if I leave now, I might not come back. And I'm too close to the end. And so, and he saw that and he let me back in. And so like this time around, when I was getting my master's, even though my advisor, she was a young girl, but still she talked to me, we talked. If there was ever an issue with the class or whatever, I could let her know. She would let me vent, but, I let her, pick my classes for me. She just went straight down the line. And, they even put me on a provisional before they would even let me into the school. It was like, no, we gotta think about, it's like, those grades were from 100 years ago. And it's like, not that they were, like I had the worst GPA ever, but still. But, they put me on a provisional and they were like, well, we have to see, what your grades are like, for 2 terms and before we can decide to like accept you into the program. But, by the grace of God, I made that first A, and it was like, wow. So then it was a challenge for me every term to obtain that A. And then I had, like I said, I had that advisor. She was there and, she would, talk. And then she was the one, I guess she led me through the courses. She led me to, focus, doing a concentration on global health. And I wish that I had had something similar to that while I was at UGA. At UGA, I just felt like, I was just there, but nobody really saw me. So that's why I feel, like this alumni engagement, is something that's really important. And I know that I would never want anyone at UGA or any school for that matter, to ever feel like that. And, if there was a way, that I could give back, or if I could mentor somebody or guide somebody, tell them my experience or whatever, and, that's what I would like to do.
Well, Lanisha, I applaud you for sharing about that part of your experience, because a lot of times we hear about the success of public health professionals. We don't actually get to hear about the struggle, and students need to hear about the struggle, because I promise you, whatever struggle we are going through is not new. So somebody has walked that path, someone has overcome it. And so what you're talking about is so valuable for having alumni engaged, to be able to see students, to allow them to know that they are seen, that they have someone that they can talk to get advice from. And sometimes when you're in school, you can be so caught in the weeds of getting your work done that sometimes it's harder to see outside of that and see a path forward. I have definitely benefited from alumni and faculty participating. So thank you for sharing that. Are there any comments or questions from our participants? I do want to share one thing. I know that on this point of alumni engagement, our alumni has recently released a mentor program for the very reason that you just mentioned. It's that students can connect with people in the field to ask them all sorts of questions. I know Kim is on all the posters for the mentor program. She's definitely participating in that. And I know the students are benefiting from it. And so for those of you who may need that, or if you're interested in talking or connecting with some of our students, feel free to visit mentor.uga.edu for more information about that. Well, we've reached all of our questions. And so, Lanisha, I just want to give you the opportunity to provide any final remarks before we hear from our work group members and give some announcements.
I can say I'm just, like I was saying earlier, I don't know how I stumbled across you guys or how you guys stumbled across me. I don't even know how it happened. I'm just glad that it did, because like I said, like I was telling Lindsay earlier, once I left school, that was, pretty much it, except for, you'll get that call about, making that donation to the school. But I never really, knew of anything else that the College of Public Health was doing, or, do we get together and do things, like you hear some of the other schools or colleges within UGA, how they do things or how they have meetings or, whatever the case may be. So, I'm glad that I'm able, to interact with you guys and, continue to learn more things, and then, learn how I can help and give back at UGA, just like, you guys do.
Lanisha, it has been a pleasure talking to you. We are very proud of you and everything that you accomplished since graduating, from Hawaii to internationally. You've done so much to contribute to the field, and we just thank you for being here. I'd like to open it up to our work group members for any final remarks, and then we'll tie up with some announcements.
Hey, Lanisha, I just want to tell you thank you. I'm also an environmental health science major, and I was back in those early times too, and often felt adrift. A lot of what you said really resonated with me. There weren't a lot of EHS students back then. There certainly weren't a lot of females, and there certainly were not a lot of Black females. And so I wish you and I had stumbled across each other. I think it probably could have been a really nice resource. But really consider joining that mentor program. Students need to hear your story and need to hear that you can have some struggles and rebound, and not only rebound, but go on and get your master's and have the amazing career that you've had. I'd love to reach out to you personally about the Environmental Health Science Club and see if you might want to Zoom with them and talk directly to some of our current students. I've spoken to that group, and I think they would treasure the words that you would have to share. So look for an email from me coming out soon to you, because I would like to just connect offline, but just between the two of us. I think we have a lot in common. Thank you for your time.
I want to say, to be honest, I want to say Jim Somerville was probably the first UGA alumni person, that I encountered once I started working at EPD. And, he was Georgia 100%. And I learned a lot working, under Jim, and especially when it comes to, enforcement and, how to do things. And I mean, they know I'm real meticulous, and then I just like to write, and enforcement was my thing, and I just loved it. Love doing it.
Yeah, I love Jim Somerville too. Hey, Jim, I'm so glad that you're on this call. He's fantastic.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, thank you so much, Lanisha, for being here with us. I'm so happy to see you here, especially since Environmental Day is Saturday? I think that's the 5th. And also to hear you give students and alumni perspective on the civilian sector and the military, because I think sometimes we forget about the military. I'm always trying to put that plug in. There are so many things you can do there as a GS employee as well. I also want to echo the imposter syndrome is real. Another thing I would like to add that puts a spin on the mentor, that's why you need one. Even as professionals, we need a mentor to push you and make you go after those opportunities that scare you. And it should scare you because it's another chance to refine your leadership, but you can do it. So when I talked about trusting the process, not just the process you're going to get the opportunity, but the process you've already been through to get to where you are, which solidifies why you're in this moment in time. I encourage you to please mentor our students. I've been a part of mentoring the students since I've graduated, and I know that students really, 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 really appreciate when you're reaching out to them final exam time, beginning of the semester, just to bring them some sunshine to their day. Somebody's thinking about them, what they're taking this semester, how can you be of help? And students, take advantage of this, because when it's time for you to get those recommendation letters, your mentors are the best ones that can do it as well. They have that well-rounded view of you, and you want to make sure that you stay engaged however they tell you to stay connected with them. That is a partnership that would take you very, very far. I'm a living witness of mentors writing you recommendations, and you, the mentee, can also return the favor and write your mentor recommendation, because one day they will need one too. What better way to do that than to have a mentee speak for what you've done to impact their life? Thank you all so much for joining us.
Excellent advice, Erica. Thank you so much. So just before we go, I have a few announcements. Our alumni working group is expanding to form an alumni board beginning July of this year. If you are interested in giving back to the College of Public Health through membership on the CPH Alumni Board, please apply. We'll put the link in the chat. It is on our website with information about the board as well as the responsibilities of the board. You can stay in touch with the College of Public Health by visiting Facebook or Instagram at Public Health UGA. That's one word, at Public Health UGA. You can also view the recording of this seminar on the CPH YouTube page at youtube.com, UGA College of Public Health. Everyone, we thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a wonderful opportunity to meet with Lanisha and also hear all the great questions that you have. And we look forward to meeting with you at our next Black Alumni Connection series. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful evening.